any idea on how to run a Mafia-style game? While heists are a standard adventure for most RPGs, there don't seem to be any that capture the ruthless climb to power. The daily paranoid grind, the moral descent, the need to maintain networks, manage heat, and settle scores. I am looking for something non-fantastic that emphasizes that secret society aspect.
I've never particularly understood why criminal games haven't been more popular. I mean, there's been Gangbusters, Dogtown, I suppose technically some Wild West games are sort of themed more along those lines. I mean, we love crime films, Godfather, Scarface, Lock, Stock, you know, there's a definite love for that as a genre, but it doesn't seem to translate into role-playing games, sort of generally speaking. You know, you can point to a horror game, you can point to a science fiction game, you can point to a fantasy game, and you can pick out sort of leaders in that field, in that genre, but you can't do the same for crime-oriented games, and that's weird. I mean, that's basically the setup of cyberpunk games to a large extent. You know, you're mercs, you're a crew taking on criminal contracts, but it's not really a criminal game in the way that you're describing. So, I mean, I have an abortive, half-finished project that's a sort of Guy Ritchie crime game. I've consulted on 2 different crime-oriented games that have fallen through. So people have tried. There was Dogtown that was sold here in the UK for a while, but didn't really take off. It's a weird one. It's a bit of a baffling one. Maybe players don't like playing the bad guys. Maybe that's it. I don't know. It's hard to point at. But that means basically you're going to have to adapt some other system to the task. And from what you described, the main thing you're looking for is a game that allows for organizations and provides sort of feedback on that basis. And community building isn't something that you find in a whole bunch of games. It's usually a bit of an afterthought. Now, you could lift the system, the background system from Underground, for example. I know I always recommend that, but it's really good for reflecting how players' actions influence the community around them. But that's not exactly a community building game, and the goal is kind of opposite to what it is in Underground, but you could lift that out. It basically lets you assign ratings to an area, and then you undertake missions or adventures or whatever to change those kind of settings, and they influence each other. So if you want to get hold of something like that, but don't want to track down an old copy of Underground or buy the PDF, my Colony Moon game and my Ace of Hearts game use essentially the same sort of system in that, so you could rip those off. You know, I'm not going to have an issue with that. Reign, REIGN, has a reasonable sort of community sort of system. That is more based at sort of kingdom level though, so that may not be what you want. Various interpretations of Fate are quite good for assigning values to communities or just about anything, but it's very abstract and may not be as grim and gritty as you would prefer. Someone will probably be along in a minute to talk about Blades in the Dark or something, but honestly I can't recommend it. There are some rules scattered around Modiphius's 2d20 systems that maybe you might be able to tap into and use. And there's things in Vason and other Year Zero engine stuff that you might be able to turn to this. As to how to run it and the paranoia and everything, that's really going to depend on the games master. But I would say, again, lifting from one of my games, Actual Fucking Monsters has the consequences system. So whenever you do anything, you kick off a chain of potential events that could happen, and then they gradually creep up on you. But it still relies on Games Master enforcement. So you do a hit on a rival gang, that creates a consequence of retaliation, with maybe a trigger of a D4, and then each session, you roll the dice on the various consequences you've got lined up and see if they trigger. And if they do, that gives you a reactive world doing stuff in return for what the characters have done. So maybe they set up a new numbers game or something, and then you assign a consequence dice for the chance of that blowing back on you, and then you decide what the blowback might be. Maybe it's another gang muscling in your territory, or someone refusing to pay up, and then gradually the game becomes self-sustaining in that way. But I would say the primary thing you need to do is look for a system that handles communities and organizations in a way that you like, and then the rest really does come down to the games master. And all you can really do with that is give tips, for which I would say, consequences, a reactive and living world that reacts to everything that the characters do, and some encouragement for things to go wrong in various ways.